Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Braden. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
USA! Oh, man. You know, it's just funny. I was thinking, I didn't even know this thing was on, Mike. I ain't going to lie. I ain't going to act like I've been a diehard fan the last 8 years watching the World Cup news, you know. Mm-hmm. This is the first soccer game I ever got. I don't even know the rules, you know. And you guys send these text messages, go. And I'm like, what's going on? I want in on this action. I'm just sitting there watching some random Netflix show, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know I could be supporting America at this given moment, so I went ahead, switched over, watched it. Very stressful because, again, I don't know the rules. I thought we scored once, and then they're like offsides, and, of course, I made the joke, you know, these pre-snap penalties are killing us, but other than that, man, America's moving on, so or United States is moving on, so I think that's pretty good news. I don't know exactly what that means. Somebody said we're screwed, we're playing the Netherlands, and I'm like, what's going on? I mean, what are they producing over there? I don't know. Maybe what would the Netherlands, like if you were to compare it to like SEC teams? Yeah. You know, like what would Netherlands be? Would they be like Bama or Georgia?
No. In fairness, Shane, I am a little bit more of a soccer World Cup fan than you, but just barely. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So go with me here. But it's almost like I'd compare them to Auburn, to where they got talent. They can beat you on a not Auburn as they have been. Maybe,
wait, are you talking about USA as Auburn?
No, I'm saying Netherlands.
Oh God,
to where they can contend from time to time, but
right.
More often than not a contender to win it all.
Okay, I want to clear this up just a little bit, Mike. Let's talk 2022, not like lifespan.
Okay, so maybe that was a bad example.
Yeah,
maybe like South Carolina, pesky team that
pesky little bastards. Yeah,
yeah, they catch fire. They can beat anybody, but
yeah,
more often than not, they're not going to win it all. You know what I mean?
Okay. What about USA? Don't say Vanderbilt. Don't say it. Are we?
I mean, basically, that's probably the best example we could do. Vanderbilt, where, you know, they're never going to win the whole thing. They're prestigious in certain ways, but not necessarily in the sport that we care about here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think Vanderbilt. Okay. That's probably is the best example.
Okay. All right. Well. Damn, you could have said somebody else. Somebody that snuck up and won a national championship once. I don't know if Vanderbilt has, maybe back in the 30s or something, you know. Anyway, all right, man. Well, I was just wanting comparison, so we're moving on to the Netherlands. I'm probably not saying that right. Don't get mad at me, Iran. But anyway, brother, I'm ready. I'm good. How about you, man?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Shane, we got Hugh Freeze officially announced here at Auburn. We got all kinds of clips we're going to get there. But before we get to that, Shane, and we also got team MVPs for every team.
Yeah.
This was a Shane idea, so Cousin Shane, credit you for being able to hit on all 14 teams like we're going to do on this episode. But before we get to that, wanted to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts, Shane? I've made it abundantly clear what I think of Hugh Freeze, but yeah. What do you think of Hugh Freeze back in the SEC on the Plains? Should make Auburn a dangerous team probably in a relatively short time.
I love it, man. Absolutely love the hire. I know Hugh Freeze comes with some baggage, right? Everybody knows I think the favorite joke I saw was they went from a Cadillac to an Escort. You know, I mean, we're going to hear it. But it's good for us. I mean, it's plenty of material online to play with. But the fact of the matter, when I think of Hugh Freeze, I think of somebody that will do anything to get wins. And, you know, sometimes that ruffles feathers. Sometimes that pisses people off. And there's a lot of people that don't like this hire. I'm the opposite. I like wins because when I think of Hugh Freeze, especially like at Ole Miss, I think of the year they had the #1 recruiting class. But what is that going to do in Auburn when he got all this NIL money? Do you think he's going to have any problems getting athletes down there on the plains?
Nope.
I mean, that's what this is. It's a business. It's a machine, and you need a salesman, and Hugh Freeze is a good one. If anybody can do what he did, get kicked out of the SEC and come back in, you got a salesman, man. That's somebody that can get the job done, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Also, I love the fact that he develops. I love what he's done with Liberty. Well, nobody was talking about Liberty for the last 3 years. That's all we talk about now. Every time it pops up,
I never even heard of the school, Shane, until he started coaching there.
Same thing, absolutely, man. So I absolutely love the hire, and I think it's great for Auburn. And eventually, the stories are going to die down. The news is going to wear off. But what's not is the recruits that he brings in and the victories that he brings down to Auburn.
Right.
And when it's all said and done, that's all people care about. Because if you look at the wins and losses on Wikipedia right now for Ole Miss while Hugh Freeze was there, you're not going to see a lot of wins. You know why?
Because they took them all away.
They took them all away. But if you were there in that moment enjoying the victories, it meant more. I mean, he took a program that won 4 games. Like the last 2 years, Houston was there. I think they won collectively 4 games the last 2 seasons. And every single season after that, he just kept building on to it. So I think you've got yourselves a winner. Now, is he a little slimy? Yeah. But, I mean, they took away his social media. I think the game is trying to find the burner because he's got one out there.
It's been said to death, Shane, if you can look past his issues, which some people can't do, but if you can just move aside from that for a moment, Brian Harsin, Hugh Freeze, no one in their damn mind is going to take Brian Harsin in that scenario. And at the end of the day, you're better off if you're the Auburn Tigers trying to win the SEC, trying to get to the college football playoff, trying to win the college football playoff.
Yep.
Hugh Freeze, 100 out of 100, better option than old Brian Harsin.
Absolutely.
Don't matter who you missed on the coaching search. All that matters is that you upgraded in coaching, recruiting, schmoozing with these boosters. You know what I mean? Like, what you have to do at Auburn to win, Hugh will do it. So, again, if you can look past his other stuff, you got to be pretty fired up if you're an Auburn fan.
And, buddy, the first time they put a 10-win season out there, ain't nobody going to be talking about what was at Ole Miss. They're going to be talking about what is coming to Auburn. So I think, again, there was going to be some news. There was going to be some smoke coming off this hire. But I think all in all, when you're looking at this university, you limited yourself. The way they played things with Gus Malzahn and definitely Brian Harsin, I mean, it showed. I mean, it's not an attractive job. There's not a long line of people waiting for an opportunity to coach at Auburn, especially an elite coach that's proved that he can win in the SEC. So I think this is as good as you can get. Besides Lane Kiffin, I mean, obviously that was the other. It's like you got to get these asterisk guys, the ones that are oh man, what about this coach? But he's got a little asterisk there, because he's got a little dirty history or something. But whatever, man. This is 2022. We want wins. You got it with Hugh Freeze, in my opinion.
And right off the bat, Shane, he's going to make everybody happy. Keeping Cadillac Williams on staff. That is official now. Associate head coach. So they've upgraded his title a little bit here. The former interim, of course, done a heck of a job.
Smart.
And that'll help in recruiting as well. Because Cadillac was picking up commits, Shane, while he was an interim. They were doing better when they had an interim coach than they did when they had a full head time coach. So, again, first day on the job, getting the job done with his what should have been his highest priority, don't you think?
Absolutely. Did you hear what he said, though, when he made his comments about the Sabans?
Oh, yeah, well, you're jumping ahead here, Shane.
Okay, I'm getting pumped up about it. All right.
Before we get to
Auburn
that,
ain't had a lot. Auburn ain't had a lot of good things going on for him. Everybody likes a new hire. It's like, oh, man.
Right.
Brighter future.
So I want to play these clips, Shane. How quickly can he turn Auburn around? I think it's important. Just look around the SEC, Shane. Josh Heupel turned Tennessee around quick.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Kelly turned around LSU quick. Napier, game one, it was pretty damn quick. But Sam Pittman, Shane Beamer, on and on and on. NIL, transfer portal, your infertile recruiting ground. Auburn is set up for success, and that's hell. I should have put this first, Shane. Fan base, incredible fan base. Support this team. Again, interim coach, terrible record, selling out for A&M. You know, I mean, that was one of the best scenes of the SEC all season. This fan base is going to put this team over the top with everybody pushing in the right direction. So let's kick it over to Hugh Freeze, talking about how quickly he can turn this thing around.
4-7, you've referenced Cadillac a bunch already. How valuable is having someone like that in this transition to help everybody involved in moving forward?
I think the words I used last night to him, I don't know if I had to plead and beg, I don't know, but I was planning to and went after it, and I think the words were just, you're invaluable. I need your wisdom. I need you to tell me about the players. I need you to tell me about the building. I need you to tell me who is really vital to us really getting this program back to SEC championships. And I think the word I would use is invaluable. I don't know that I can describe it any more than that.
Birmingham, you look at the building you're in right now, brand new facility. I can see the smile on your face. One of the best, if not the best, in the country for college football. The game day atmosphere is second to none. How far away is this program from getting back to that national championship form that the 2010 time was?
And I wish I could say. I haven't had a chance to even evaluate our roster yet. I don't think, Cadillac could probably help me with this answer, but I think we can turn it fairly fast with the new world we're in. Because I believe with the commitment that's been shown by our fans, boosters, and administration to invest in things like this that matter in recruiting, and they matter in the NIL, on the Victory Fund, and all of that matters today. And it didn't 10 years ago. You didn't have that, and so the turnaround's a little different. Kids couldn't just leave a school and come to Auburn. They can now. And so I do think we've got to be careful to get the right kids that fit our culture. But at the same time, it's much easier to add to your roster now than it was, when I took over at Ole Miss and they hadn't won an SEC game in 2 years. And obviously we're going to some New Year's Sixes in year 3 and 4. So I see no reason why, with the current structure, we can't do this fairly fast. Was the portal. I think year one, portal will be a big priority. And again, this is without me talking to recruiting yet to find out kind of where we are with the high school recruits. I do believe in building it with high school kids and filling in with portal. Can we do that in year one? I'm not sure yet, so I would anticipate it being heavier toward the portal.
And then, like Shane said, I think the most viral comments Hugh had in his debut, and probably the reason he is the head coach on the Plains. He's beat Nick Saban twice. Nick Saban tried to hire him, got blocked from hiring him. Kirby Smart hired him as an analyst there. I mean, if Kirby and Nick Saban, if they have your seal of approval, my God, you're a good football mind.
Yeah.
Once again, he references Nick Saban, Terry Saban, close friends, but he's basically put them on notice day one on the job.
Birmingham, of course we know you've beaten Alabama while at Ole Miss. How much are you looking forward to matching up against Nick Saban in the Iron Bowl?
Well, you don't take this job if you're not built to want that. And I welcome that. I want it. I want to be in that arena. I want, I really, really, really enjoy that type of game. And I have a great respect for Nick, and he and Miss Terry have been really good friends to us too. But I hope they're a little nervous today.
Coach.
So how about it, Shay? If you're an Auburn fan, even if you despise Hugh Freeze, you have got to be fired up by that comment, don't you think?
Gotta love it. You gotta love it. That's what you brought him there for Forget all the other teams. You want to beat Alabama.
Yep.
You want to be you beat Alabama, you start winning national champions. You start winning SEC championships. So I think this is what you got to do. He read the room, did it right. Because it's a little tense, man. That room's divided, and it's going to take them a little while to get on their side. But this is what you do. You play the game, and that's what Hugh's already doing down there.
Now, let me ask you this real quick, Shane, because I know we talk about this about every 2 weeks about the end of the Saban era and when he's going to retire and all this. But you look around the division, Shane. We got Hugh Freeze has beaten him twice. We got Jimbo's beaten him, and could have beaten him another time or two. Close matches. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly come in here. Year one at LSU beat him. Sam Pittman's got Arkansas a little bit closer to beating him.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin knocking out the door time and time again to beating Nick Saban. The only one that really not even close, is Mike Leach. And, the talent discrepancy is such a issue that it's not like we're calling out Mississippi State. But what's that say about the SEC West moving forward, Shane? That, basically all around the division is people that know how to beat Nick Saban.
Mike, in my opinion, I think the NIL is the ultimate equalizer. And for the longest time, say what you want, the jokes about the Chargers and whatnot, there was a lot of – there had to be. It's going on at all these universities. And my university was no different. Hell, we just got popped for it, handing out Chick-fil-A bags. So I just – not McDonald's. We ain't poor, all this NIL money up here, you know what I'm saying? But I think, that's the era we're in. And I know there's some coaches that are really griping about it, and it's really maybe it's going to cause a little bit of a separation in the SEC. But I think the top tier of this conference is going to be closer together because of it. It is going to. You guys did an excellent show yesterday. And if you didn't check it out, jump on there. You and Steve jumped into the portal and answered a lot of questions I was having. But I think this year, you're going to see, it's going to be wild, brother. It is going to be absolutely crazy with the NIL, deals that we've now got in place.
Right.
It is a free agency, and you're going to see names hit that portal that you didn't even think was in question. You're going to see names come out of these different conferences, the ACCs, the Big Tens. Everybody wants to flood down to the SEC because this is where everybody's making money. So I just keep an eye on that. I think this is going to be an absolute. It is a free market. So I think that's part of it. Is the talent gap isn't as wide as it used to be. Georgia is winning national championships. They're recruiting like crazy. Texas A&M is paying, man. They got recruits. They're getting them down there like crazy. You get Kelly 1 year. You talk about some of these coaches that we've had in the SEC here recently and how quick they've ramped up their programs. They're able to do that because of that transfer portal. You don't have to build a program anymore. You just got to pay them. So I think that's the key, and that's the future of college football right now.
And, I'm just going to be fascinated to see, Shane. We hear all these rumblings. There's going to be so many players in there. So see who's in there. See kind of like what Steven and I were talking about. Is it all going to be money driven? We kind of assume many of these decisions are, but hey, there's only so much money to go around, so I'm sure every quarterback and receiver thinks they're getting a big deal. But again, pass rushers, offensive linemen, those are probably going to be priorities. So it's just going to be fascinating to see. And again, everybody, we peg Alabama and Georgia. They dominate high school recruiting. They have since Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have been there, but they may not dominate the transfer portal as much as people think because of NIL. That's a big reason why old Lane Kiffin's the portal king out there. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely. And I'm hearing a lot of rumors of people jumping in there just to see what they're worth. Get on there. See. You may find out that South Carolina wants to offer you $800,000 to run some commercials or something, and then here you are sitting back home making $50,000 while some of your other classmates are making more money. I truly think that it's going to be a kind of like it's going to be a gauge, and they're going to jump on there and just to see how much they're worth.
Hey, Shane, real quick, this just broke while we were sitting here talking.
Oh.
college football playoff rankings just came out.
Oh,
You want to hear the SEC was real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Of course, Georgia, number one. They remain number one. There was some discussion. Would Michigan jump them? Hell no. We got to put Georgia number one. Michigan is 2, TCU 3, Southern Cal 4, and old Ohio State knocking at the door right there at number 5. But we've got Alabama still in front of Tennessee. Alabama 6, Tennessee number 7 for some reason. LSU 14. South Carolina, how about this, brother? 19. Big jump for them Gamecocks. Are they still behind? Yeah, they're 10 spots behind Clemson. They just beat Clemson at Clemson. That's how ridiculous this is. And 24, Mississippi State. So that's our playoff SEC programs.
Well, I didn't mean to sound so down, but I just knew, everybody knew Alabama, and I'm not against Alabama. The question is, I don't like Alabama and Tennessee meet right now on a neutral field.
Yep.
They're probably beating the shit out of us. I'm not going to lie. That's not what this is about, because I'm going off what the rules were for the college football playoffs, or at least what they're going by. And we beat them head to head. What's the point of, like you said, what's the point of playing these games if they don't matter? Just gut feel. They look better right now. No, that's not what this is. They had an opportunity to beat Tennessee. They didn't. They had an opportunity to beat LSU. They didn't. Was it? Yeah, it was a one-score game, but I don't care. It's a win and a loss. And, their criteria puts Tennessee ahead of them right now. So, and not that it matters. I mean, really it doesn't, because USC, unless they drop to Utah, or TCU drops a game, I don't see that happening. I think you may be looking at your top 4 right here.
Yeah, I think so. The only reason it does matter, Shane, is for the bowls.
Yeah.
Alabama may get a better bowl game than Tennessee, which, again, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but we're talking sugar versus orange. I mean, that's 2 prestigious bowls any way you slice it. You know what?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a Tennessee fan, that ship sailed in Columbia. You know what I'm saying? Like, we had a chance, and we let that one get away from us. I am a little, it wouldn't be, I hate that Ohio State's, like, if you were to pick even Tennessee or Alabama, I don't think Ohio State should be ahead of either one of those teams, in my opinion. But, that's the problem. It's like it's going to be tough to prove that point unless Michigan just gets blown out in the college football playoffs by Georgia. I just hate that there's not two teams in there. But anyway, it is. Well,
and before we get to our MVP, Shane, two little notes here to make mention of. One of them particularly kind of important. Kentucky has fired offensive coordinator Rick Scangarello. This comes a day after they fired the special teams coordinator. So it's kind of like we've been saying, staff overhaul there in Lexington. And this is not a surprise by any means. Kentucky's offense was so average at best at times. But it's going to be pretty interesting to see where Kentucky goes with this thing, because if Mark Stoops makes another poor offensive coordinator hire, man, with the way Florida is potentially trending, the way Tennessee is trending, South Carolina, I think you could even say Missouri, there's a real danger of falling behind all those programs. Again, I'm saying if they strike out with an offensive coordinator hire and they don't land a big-time quarterback in the transfer portal, this is something they may have to hire by Monday to get a good quarterback in here, because again, it may just come down to NIL, but I think a quarterback's going to want to know what system he's playing in, don't you think?
No, I think the hire needs to be quick. I think you're right. I think this transfer portal is going to be one of the wildest ones we've ever seen. It's going to be big news. We're going to be talking about it all week, brother. And because Kentucky still needs to fill out the program and like you said, know the direction. It's tough for me to commit to a school if I don't know what kind of offense you're going to run. I don't want to play just any style. So, no, I think that's a great point. Is there any, I know it just happened, any names you're hearing floating around?
Well, the most interesting one, Shane?
Yeah, I love interesting.
Liam Cohen, former offensive coordinator, now with the Rams.
Yeah.
I have no idea if that's realistic or not, but I heard our buddies there at Kentucky Sports Radio, Nick Roush, talking about that. Adam Luckett, I don't watch a ton of NFL. Not that I'm against it. I just don't have time. But apparently the Rams are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And if Sean McVay, he's apparently got a huge offer to go do TV. I mean, I'm just saying the pieces are lining up here. But again, I don't know if you can sit around and wait for an NFL season to end. But it'd be pretty fascinating if Liam Cohen made that move back to Kentucky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the school that gave him the opportunity to go to the NFL. What's to prevent him from doing that again? And the school was really humming when he was there. So, I mean, that's the key, man, just getting a good hire. Because one bad hire, set your program back. And I'm not saying that was detrimental to Kentucky, but now with no Will Levis, I think this is a huge hire and needs to be done sooner than later.
Right. And the only other note I had real quick here, Shane, Lane Kiffin has officially signed his contract there in Ole Miss, so we don't have to worry about that at least for another 11 months because if Ole Miss is red hot again,
yeah,
they're gonna be talking. Oh, Lane to Texas, Lane to Oklahoma, on and on and on. This I think is gonna be an annual thing here.
What was that one? Was it Birch in South Carolina? Is like, oh, he's committed. He just hasn't got around to signing it yet. Yeah. I was thought maybe Lane would drag this out a little bit longer, give John some playing time down there.
Yep. But all right, hey buddy. So this is your idea. I'm gonna let you go first. But
yeah,
team MVP for all 14 SEC teams, and I always like to go in alphabetical order. Looking at the SEC West first, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
Who do you got as team MVP for them Alabama Crimson Tide?
Well, I think this is one of the easiest ones, Mike, and I think you'll agree with me here. This is clearly Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Focal piece of this offense, at times the only piece of this offense, it felt like. And that's even being banged up. He was still the leader out there. And I think a healthy Bryce, we may be talking about a top 2 clash here at the SEC championship. But, again, you got to remember Tennessee was a little bit banged up. LSU, I don't think he was quite 100%, but, he at least was a little bit more athletic and mobile, but not like he was toward the late of the season. So I just think he is the offense, and he made that thing run. I don't know what he had, 3,000 yards passing, something like that.
Yep.
But I again, clear cut number 1 MVP on that team for me.
Yeah, and I would even go so far, Shane, to say that, for whatever reason, these Heisman voters, they basically refused to give the trophy to someone 2 times.
Yeah.
I know they did it, back in the 70s or whatever. Archie Griffin, I think was his name. But aside from that, they've never done it. And I think you can make the case, if we're just giving it to the best, most outstanding player, Bryce Young probably should win it again this year. But they're not going to vote it that way, so I'm not saying that's going to happen. But he's just that good. He's that clutch. And incredibly, he's been lacking weapons, even though we're talking about Alabama here. So sometimes he has to seemingly do it all by himself, So, yeah, I don't think there really is another answer for Alabama. Bryce Young, this was an easy one.
I want to ask you, Mike, because there's been a lot of great quarterbacks come through here lately. Out of the Tuas and the Jones and stuff, I mean, is he the best quarterback Alabama's had in a long time, if ever?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, Tua was great too, but
yeah,
I don't know. He got banged up a lot.
Right.
Of course, I was about to say he couldn't win the big game. Hell, he did it as a freshman. They wouldn't have won it without him.
Right.
But it's similar to Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce Young won a national championship, but he was on the bench the whole time. So, there's some parallels there. I mean, Tua and Bryce are right there, but I would give a slight edge to Bryce Young.
It's just crazy seeing. I mean, next year, Bryce is probably going to be the first pick. Mm-hmm. Probably. I think they're predicting Houston is going to be down there, but there's a real shot the last 5 Alabama quarterbacks are going to be starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Isn't that crazy?
Right. Well, and how, we're still at Alabama. We got 13 left, but let me ask you real quick. How big of a concern is this for Alabama next season that we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be? Should they go to the transfer portal? They got talented guys on their roster, but they're largely inexperienced. And again, Bryce has carried this team.
Right.
Where are they without him? I mean, that's a huge question mark to me.
I think a little concerned here because if you remember when all these quarterbacks were there, we were talking about the next man up.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. And it's like, in fact, we had a lot of controversy around the Hurts situation and Tua. And I mean, it was just, we always knew, like, man, don't you think this guy's good? Wait till you see the next one. Well, they're not saying that anymore. Right. It feels like Bryce is the end of the line. And I'm not saying they don't got talent on that roster. That quarterback room is absolutely loaded, but proven talent. What is it going to look like? It's again, there's been a lot of 5 stars that have come out here, and turns out they're not a 5-star quarterback in the SEC. So I'm obviously a little concerned, but they haven't proved me wrong yet. So I mean, the last 10 years they've put a quarterback out. So I think Nick Saban's got one on the roster somewhere.
All right, who's the MVP for Arkansas?
Arkansas. One second, I'm gonna get my list here. This one's easy. It's Rocket Sanders, but I would say
I don't think it's that easy.
Wait. I know where you're going. I'm gonna get my camera. Probably blurry on this one. It's probably best because Arkansas fans are yelling at me right now. What about Sanders? Am I right, Mike? It's which Sanders you going to go with here? I don't get me wrong. I think Drew Sanders has had an awesome year, but in my opinion, what Rocket's been able to do this year, I've got his stats here. It's crazy. 1,426 yards. If he didn't have the 47-yard performance against Mizzou, he easily could have been the number 1 rusher in the SEC. 2 years with an average carry of almost 10 yards per carry. So, yes, I think in this day of college football, establishing the line of scrimmage and getting the running game going is very important, and it allows you to throw. And I think Rocket has been the focal piece of that. So, yeah, my MVP for Arkansas is Mr. Rocket Sanders.
Well, they got 2 Sanders, like you said, that should be all SEC first team, in my opinion. But I don't even think it's either one of them, Shane. KJ Jefferson, he's the heart and soul of this team. I know he got banged up, which maybe, in fairness, you could say, well, you can't be MVP if you miss some time. But, no, I'm putting him on there, Shane. I mean, he did not finish top 10 in the SEC in passing yards. There was an Arkansas fan calling him out, and I said, whoa, buddy, whoa. He's number 2 in the SEC in passing yards per attempt. That's a much more accurate stat to go off of how good a quarterback is. He's number 3 in touchdowns passing. He's added over 500 yards rushing, another 7 touchdowns on the ground. He's just the heart and soul of Arkansas, and I know he made certainly a mistake in the Texas A&M game, but I don't think he's the reason that Arkansas is 6-6, unless you could say, well, he missed 2 games and they lost those 2. So I think if they had him, I mean, they're closer to an 8-4 type team, and I think KJ is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's my MVP. It's just unfortunate that he got banged up this year.
Yeah, and I think when we, because this is kind of weird, because I catch myself going between Heisman and MVP. I think a Heisman is a guy that you remove from the team extremely, they suffer. And then the MVP is more like, okay, statistically, this guy is the best player on the field. So I think that's where I kind of find myself here with Arkansas. I'm with you. Arkansas is noticeably worse when KJ's not out there, but you can say that about just about any SEC, any team in college football. You remove the starting quarterback, but to average 10 yards a carry, I mean, golly, Mike, that is in the SEC is extremely tough feat to do, and so that's why I don't think he gets enough praise for how good he's been or how good this year's been. I know we do a good job at that. You're an Arkansas lover, but there's a lot of people outside that don't acknowledge how amazing his season was. So that's why I'm going to stick with Rocket.
All right, how about Auburn? Who you got for them?
All right, Mike, 1 second here. My list. We got numbers, you know what I'm saying? I should put my readers on, but I'm not going blind just yet. I'm going to go this one's tough for me because I think Auburn is a tale of 2 seasons, if you will, and but the one guy that's kind of roughed it out here the last few years, hasn't gave up, has been the workhorse, is Tank Bigsby. And don't get me wrong, we talked about Hunter and how great he looked this last game, actually last few games. I think the future is bright with him. But if you're picking an MVP, a focal piece of that team, it wasn't on defense, I don't think. I'm going offense. Give me Tank. Had over almost another 1,000 yards. I mean, if you add in his receptions,
right,
1,000-yard back. I mean, that's what he is. He's old reliable. And when I think of Auburn, that's what I think of is ground and pound, the running game, and nobody's done it better than Tank.
And just imagine if he had some blocking. You know what?
Oh God, I know. Or just a downfield threat. Don't get me. I mean, we've bashed Auburn enough, but if there was an ounce of passing game in their arsenal, that would imagine the running lanes that would have opened up for Tank and Hunter. So I think just when you watch Auburn here the last couple of seasons, how many times has he been going against the 8-9 man guy in the box? I mean that 1,000 yards he had to fight for it, and he did.
Well, I like that selection. But you're wrong, Shane. Derek Hall, defensive lineman. I mean, the guy's been an animal all season long. He's been great for multiple years there, but I think he's really stepped his game up this season. He damn near won him the Missouri game single-handedly. It's pretty rare for a defensive lineman to do, but he's been consistent. He gutted it out during the Iron Bowl, clearly playing injured. I loved what I saw from Derek Hall this season, and I think Auburn fans know what an outstanding player is. I don't know if the rest of the SEC truly recognizes what a great player he is, and I think he may be a guy in the NFL, second or third round pick, and then, multiple Pro Bowls, and people say, well, how the hell did we miss on this guy? I think Derek Hall is your next great Auburn player that excels in the NFL.
Yeah, good one.
How about LSU? Who you got for them?
Jaden. We got to go Jaden here. And the thing that drives me nuts about Jaden, now that I know how good he is if he would have started the season, maybe he would be, because the development throughout the season. I mean, obviously got a little banged up last week, wasn't his greatest performance, but up to this point, just how good he's been and how much he's developed week to week, he is a focal piece of that offense. And without it, I just don't know what it wouldn't look good, Mike. I really don't. I think they would have struggled a lot more during these games, and a lot of that had to do with the dual threat. Over 800 yards running. Forget the passing, how efficient he's been in the throwing game, but what he's been able to do with his legs, extending downs, getting the first down. The guy's been an absolute beast, absolute animal, and I think. I don't know if there's any awards for out of nowhere, but if there was, this is the guy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm giving him that award, MVP for LSU, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. He finished number 10 in the SEC in rushing, Shane, as a quarterback. I mean, how crazy is that? And, I think looking back in the years to come, who knows what will Brian Kelly will accomplish in Baton Rouge, but just based on year one, he's going to win a couple SEC titles. Hopefully he wins a national championship or two for that fan base. But I think he is going to have to look back one day and get this man a car or a house or something. You know what I mean? Because I think Jaden Daniels was instrumental not only clearly in getting LSU to win this division title, but getting the team to buy in, because it's always easier to do when you're winning these ball games. And they were not winning any games without this guy early in the season. I mean, hell, he literally was the offense, even in the opener that they lost. But that was not because Jaden Daniels. The only reason they were in that game, the only reason they were in a lot of these games early, Jaden Daniels on the offensive side of the ball as they were fitting the pieces together. So, I mean, he's just been outstanding. And we have to recognize a little bit here, Harold Perkins, just outstanding. I mean, he's a close runner-up. As invaluable as Jaden Daniels was, Harold Perkins looks like he could be a possible Heisman winner on the defensive side of the ball if he continues his progression.
I know. I'm terrible. I'm like the Heisman thing. I don't want to give defense. Like, I know Wilson's great, or Perkins great. I'm sorry, cut that part out. I know Perkins is great, but it's like part of me is like, yeah, but it's It's all about the offense, Shane. No, he's been fantastic. I think that the Arkansas game alone,
Yep.
I could watch him. I'd love to see a GPS tracker on him that game, brother. And I'll tell you what, he was all over that field.
So how about who's your MVP for Ole Miss?
Ole Miss, I'm going Judkins, man. I love this kid, freshman. I mean, the future is bright for Ole Miss. And maybe part of the reason that Lane Kiffin's like, yeah, sure, I'll come back. I mean, Zach Evans was good too, but I mean, we got a true freshman, man. 1,400 yards in the SEC.
Yeah.
Godly, this when Ole Miss can't get the running game going, that's when they really struggle. But the days that Junkins was able to get going, they were able to find victories most of the time. So easily my MVP.
Yeah, led the SEC.
I'm curious. Well, that's important because Zach Evans did. I mean, he had almost 1,000 yards himself.
Right.
And if he's removed from the situation, Lord knows how many yards he would have had.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to lead the SEC in rushing. It's even tougher as a true freshman. But that's what he did, and he was not this 5-star prospect that everybody was begging to get. So just an incredible story there. He should rewrite the record books down there if he plays, 3 seasons at Ole Miss with what he'll do on the ground. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an easy answer. You said it there. I mean, with Jackson Dart, started to come on at the tail end of the season, but again, they needed to rely on that ground game, and Judkins led the way. I was head over heels, like you were saying, was Zach Evans. And not that he disappointed by any means, but his star just didn't shine quite as bright as old Judkins, did it?
No, it didn't, man. And even Dart, when I thought Ole Miss coming in the season, I thought Dart would be the guy.
Yeah.
He'd be Corral 2.0, and it's just wild. Lane Kiffin, a page out of Nick Saban's book, just take what you're talented at and keep giving them the ball, and that's what he did. He identified this freshman, and it just kept handing him the ball, and he just kept performing. So, hell of a season for him.
How about Mississippi State? Who's your MVP there?
This one was tough. I mean, it seems like the obvious answer would be Will Rogers because a lot of that offense goes through him. Not to mention when you're throwing almost 50 times a game, your stats are going to look pretty. I think it was a little bit of a down year for Mr. Rogers, but I still think he's going to be my MVP. Another almost 4,000 yards passing. I mean, tons of yards, 34 touchdowns, six interceptions. I think I'm going to have to go with him. Do you agree?
I disagree.
Yeah, I knew it. I was like, I didn't feel confident about that one.
I'm going with Emmanuel Forbes, the outstanding corner. Just got snubbed for the Jim Thorpe Award. Didn't even make the finalist list. Is a joke. Led the SEC in interceptions. He's the all-time leader in pick sixes in SEC history. Lockdown corner. These corners oftentimes they don't get enough love. I think Emmanuel Forbes, again, he's going to be the next great Mississippi State defender to do well in the NFL, assuming I believe he's got another year of eligibility, but he's so good. I think he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL. So give me Emmanuel Forbes, who did his part to really make Mississippi State one of the most underrated defenses in the league this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that defense.
Now, I know I don't even have to ask you this one, Shane. Texas A&M,
yeah.
Who's your MVP?
And the real Heisman, no. It's funny. Texas A&M did not have a lot of good things go their way this year, but they had a lot of grit, brother. And the heart of that grit was the running back Devon Achane. This is a guy that touched the ball almost more than the quarterback. It felt like he was a focal piece of the offense. Over 1,000 yards. I mean, he was. Sometimes he put the team on his back, and that's what I love about him, and that's why I've got him in the MVP here. Yeah,
Devon Achane is the only answer here. And again, I know he missed a couple games, but that does not take away from just how outstanding he was for the Aggies. Yeah. And again, you got to remember, the blocking at times was awful. The quarterback play at times was awful. Mm-hmm. Yet this guy showed up week in, week out, produced, and no need to diss the scheme here on and on and on. We've done that enough, but he continued to produce. No excuses for Devon Achane. He got it done this season.
Let me ask you: if you heard anything? Is he declared?
Not
is it
not
junior?
Yet, but
okay.
Boy,
could you imagine?
I think it's unlikely he returns. I'll just say
Yeah.
that. He wanted to suit
NIL.
up. He wanted to suit up one more time, on Saturday.
Find some NIL money, you know what I'm saying? Come
Yeah,
on
well,
now.
They got that in the NFL too, brother.
Yeah, I know.
All right, how about the SEC East? Shane, Florida Gators. Who's your MVP there?
This one's tough for me, man. Because it feels like Anthony Richardson should be the guy, but I don't think he is, brother. I know there's a lot of people wondering if he's going to come back, or he's going to go pro, or anything like that. And Anthony Richardson is such an electrifying. He's just electrifying character. He's somebody that you think you want to build a team around, but at the end of this season, I don't think that's who Billy wants to build this team around. I think he wants to build it around the running game. And I hate to do it, but I'm going to have to do a split here, brother. I'm going to have to do a split between Montrell Johnson and ETN here. These guys collectively had over 1,500 yards rushing, and I think was the bright light that came from the Gators here. There wasn't an individual, in my opinion, that walked away with an MVP award. I think it comes down to those two running backs, and what's nice is they're young, and you actually could build this team around these MVPs. So give me both running backs for the Florida Gators.
Yeah, I was going to say Montrell Johnson as well. Shane, he scored a touchdown in every game Florida won. Give you an indication of how important he was. And every win, he had 75 yards or more rushing, and most of those he had over 100. The only exception was the Eastern Washington game, which was a blowout, so they just didn't need him. But that gives you an indication of how valuable his production was to the team. But since you said ETN and Johnson, I'll give it to someone else, Shane. Osiris Torrance, the offensive lineman that the transfer in from Louisiana, followed Billy Napier. Actually followed Montrell Johnson as well. Just an outstanding performer on the offensive line. We got to give some love to the linemen, Shane, that clear the way for these outstanding running backs. You could go no wrong, ETN Johnson, but I'll give it to Osiris Torrance. Give some linemen some love here.
Look at you supporting the big guys. Huh? You've been hanging around me too long.
All right, how about the Georgia Bulldogs, Shane?
Georgia is an interesting one because they play so well as a team.
Yeah,
it's not a group of individuals. This is a team effort. The Bulldogs, I've said it many times on these pods. Just when you think it's Brock Bowers, then it's McIntosh, or then it's Stetson, and it's back and forth. It's wherever is not working, the other guys are pulling them. So you could even say the defense. Hell, they got some studs over there. Yep. Carter, Ringo, all those guys. They're going to be in the NFL. They're going to be making millions and millions of dollars next year. But if I had to pick one individual, I got to go with old man, my man, Heisman, mailman. Say that 10 times fast. The reason I say that, man, when the tough games came, he's the one that stepped up. When I think of Tennessee in particular, he was on fire, man. And I still feel like Stetson's not getting opened up all the way. And I think we're going to see a little bit more of that here in the SEC Championship, most likely in the college football playoffs. But when it comes crunch time, he's always performed. He's always got the job done, and that's through the air, on the ground, any way that he can. He's just playing his best. And who knows? He may not play at the next level long. He may have a long NFL career. But I will say, when we look back, we're going to talk about Stetson as one of the better quarterbacks to come through the University of Georgia.
Yeah, and don't forget the Oregon game, the South Carolina game. I mean, he stepped up, and of course, last season, national championship and the playoff game against Michigan. So that's going to be his legacy, aside from being the quarterback that won that national championship, but just stepping up in the clutch, making the plays. Got no issue with Stetson Bennett being MVP. He's like a coach on the field there. But since you went with Stetson, I'll go Brock Bowers, Shane. An incredible athlete. He does it all, rushing, receiving, and he stepped up his game significantly as a blocker, which is
Right.
obviously not something you can see in the stats, but week in, week out, he's clearing path for these outstanding running backs, and his versatility also aids Georgia and why they're so difficult to defend, because you got to pay so much attention to the guy, and he may just
Yeah.
be coming to maul you with a 4 or 5 star running back running right behind him. You know what?
And I think that's the problem is Brock, Brock sometimes gets lost in the stat line, and he's not lost in the defensive scheme.
Right.
There's extra attention on him, and sometimes that's what's opened up opportunities for guys around him. So, So I mean, true. You want to talk about just a freak athlete? That's Brock. And honestly, I thought about giving him the list first, the MVP first, but I just went with the mailman. I had to go with him and just what he's been able to do in the big games.
So who you got for Kentucky?
If you'd have asked me at the start of the season and we're at the end of the season who I thought would be the MVP, I would have went Will Levis easily. I mean, there's no question. The guy's going to be playing in the NFL. We've all heard the stat lines, but I went a different route. I went Rodriguez here and didn't get to start the season, but when he came in there, it felt like that was the best Kentucky football we've seen. And he was able to make that team two-dimensional. You look, he was able to get, I think, 20 100-yard games. I think he broke a record for Kentucky. 20 100-yard. The last 5 out of the 7 games that he had 100 yards. Ended the season with 904. So if he would have had a complete season, would have been well over 1,000 yards. I just like how tough he was. And one of the things that stood out to me too is the leadership and the accountability. He made some mistakes early in the season, but there was a drive. I don't know if you even caught it during the Louisville game, and one of the young kids on Kentucky was dogging one of the Louisville guys, and was close to getting a personal foul the way he was standing over this kid, and Rodriguez just grabbed him, hit him in the head, and said, you could tell, you don't have to hear the words, but it's like, use your damn head. That's what he's saying. It's that kind of leadership that I think, you can't measure. And everything I've heard from the locker room there, Rodriguez is a big part of that. So I'm giving him my MVP.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, Shane. And the way I rationalized it, aside from the Florida win in the Swamp, which he did not play for, kind of your 3 other biggest wins, Mississippi State, Missouri, and Louisville, those were his 3 best games. And the guy finished, I believe, 6th in the SEC in rushing, and again, he missed 4 games. So, I mean, that gives you an indication of just what a beast he is. Never goes down on the first contact. Blocking was an issue all year long for the Kentucky Wildcats, yet it was, Chris Rodriguez was still getting his in many of these matchups. So, yeah, Chris Rodriguez, he's kind of the heart and soul of this Kentucky program. He's going to be a tough one to replace. Who you got for Missouri, Shane, as your team MVP?
Mike, I was going to lean on you on this one, brother, because if I'm picking the MVP, I'm picking the entire defensive side, mainly those defensive backs. It was a total. Now there was, again, it's kind of similar to Georgia. There's weeks that somebody on the defense like McGuire boy, steps up, and then next week it's somebody in the secondary just locked down corners. So I want to lean toward that, but I have to pick one, so I went with Cook. And the reason I went with Cook is, he didn't play great the entire season, but the games that he did, he was a game changer. And I think of the South Carolina game. I think of those games that he really played excellent football. It came down to him and his legs and his just, I don't know, his growth throughout the season. So was it perfect? No, but if I had to pick an MVP, I'm going to give it to him as kind of the easy answer for me.
Yeah, and this is going to be a heartbreaking answer for me, Shane. I hate to do this, but I'm trying to be honest here. I'm giving it to Dominique Lovett, who likely is not going to be on the team next year. But he's just such a dynamic playmaker. He was consistent all season long. I think, he probably wouldn't have surpassed Jalen Hyatt. He had such a great year there at Tennessee. But aside from Hyatt, I mean, I think Lovett would have been, neck and neck with him if he had more consistent quarterback play.
Right.
So just the production he was able to get without a solid quarterback at times was really amazing, and he really helped this offense. Excuse me, I'm choking up. I'm crying over here thinking about him not being at Missouri. But
easy, Coach Leach. Do you need some water?
He just helped Missouri in so many fashions. So I hate it. I hate it that he's likely not going to be there. But man, that just gives you an indication of how big of a loss this will be, and how much Luther Burden needs to step up and assume those duties next season for Missouri.
I almost went that route, and I kind of wonder what would have happened if he would have, because he got banged up a little bit earlier this season. But
yeah, he got in the Georgia game. Had he played the second half, they may have won.
Seriously, good, hell of a player. So, and maybe they can still get him. I don't know. I've seen some cryptic tweets come from him. So
right,
we're holding off. We don't know yet.
How about South Carolina, Shane? Who's your MVP there?
Boy, I tell you what, this damn Gamecock. Here's the thing that drove me nuts. If you would have asked me 3 weeks ago who the MVP was, I'm giving it to Kai Kroger. Yeah. The most efficient punter, 3 for 3. The guy's unstoppable. He's but no, I'm talking about Beamer ball. I mean, he's got to get a little recognition. But when you beat Tennessee, you beat Clemson, 2 top 8 teams, and you do it with Spencer Rattler, I got to give it to him. Forget the rest of the season. In fact, Spencer threw more touchdowns in those 2 games than he did he had half of his touchdowns in those 2 games as opposed to the other 10. That's just how efficient he's been. His numbers, and I got them wrote down here: 72% efficiency, 798 yards between those 2 games, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's my dude. Yeah. That's the light came on. He realized he was an elite quarterback, and he showed it. And when he's playing like that, they can beat anybody. And so, and he stepped up in 2 of the 3 biggest games that they played this season. He stepped up. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give him my MVP.
Okay. Well, I considered him. I considered Marshawn Lloyd, Shane,
mm-hmm.
who in the middle of the season, when things were bleak, when there was big-time questions, Charlotte, Kentucky, and Texas A&M right there in the middle of the season. Those 3 games, 372 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns in 3 games. When South Carolina needed him the most, you could certainly make the case for Marshawn Lloyd. I know he got banged up too towards the tail end of the season. But, hey, I'm going with your first instinct, Shane, and this is not meant to disrespect South Carolina, but hey, it's Beamer ball. It's Pete Limbo.
Yeah.
It's Kai Kroger, man. I mean, he was just outstanding. And not only was he the nation's best punter, he got robbed he didn't even make the finalist, Shane, for Ray Guy Award. I don't think these award people, I don't even think they watch the games or something.
No.
He's throwing touchdowns. He's rushing the ball. I mean, Kai Kroger, he's doing everything they needed. He epitomized what South Carolina is this season. Consistency on special teams, surprise. We got to give the punter some love here when he's this outstanding. You know what?
Yeah, well, that's why I mentioned. I mean, at first I wanted to sound like a joke, but it's really not, because think of how many games he helped win.
Right.
Because he pinned them in a 5 yards, or like you said, he got a first down or extended a drive. I think the guy's just been electric and a focal piece of that pillar that nobody talks about, special teams. And man, he was super special.
So how about for Tennessee, Shane?
Well, my beloved Vols. I mean, you could about put anybody on this list. You could put Jalen Hyatt. He broke the record for the most receiving touchdowns. You could put Hendon Hooker, because he's – but this was a magical season for Tennessee Vols, brother. And I'm not saying that because I'm a homer. I'm just saying that because I'm a homer, And I'm going to be talking about my grandkids one day about this program. And I'm going to be talking about Hooker. And then I'm going to explain to my wife who I was talking about, But I joke. I think that this has been a fantastic season for Tennessee Vols. It didn't quite end like we wanted it to, but it got to this point because of the arm and the legs of one Hendon Hooker, man. This guy, he was the offense, brother. And I think a lot of people lose, because you see these big stats and you look at all the touchdowns and stuff like that. Yes, those plays were big. But, there were some 3rd and 3s and, 2nd and longs that he was able to get a first down just because of his mobility and able to get out of the pocket or a collapse pocket sometimes. So this guy is Tennessee football, brother. And we were fortunate to have him down here. If you get a chance, you should buy one of his books for your kids. So I'm going to give Hendon Hooker 31-35 is his yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 430 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns on the ground. So without a doubt, my guy Hendon Hooker. Honorable mention, though, I got to say Jalen Hyatt, because he broke a record with 15 touchdowns and over 1,200 yards receiving, but he didn't catch those if it wasn't from Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, and I think the best way to explain the greatness of Hendon Hooker this season, Shane, he would have games this year where, maybe he'd miss a couple throws, and we're sitting here saying, man, he is off today. And then you look at the stats, and he's got 360 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. You're like, my God, that's an off day. But we're just used to just him hitting every pass.
That's right.
And he was stepping up in the clutch. I know he didn't get it done against Georgia, but guess what? One quarterback's got it done against Georgia in 2 seasons. You know what I mean? So that's no blemish on his mark in his resume. The South Carolina, that was a debacle, but again, that was not on the offense, that was on the defense. So Hendon Hooker, he should be a Heisman finalist, Shane. I don't understand why he gets hurt and all of a sudden he's like off the list. You know what I mean? So he's just been so good. I got full confidence in Josh Heupel. You look at his resume, his track record. They're gonna he produces quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. But that being said, Shane, I don't know if we'll ever see one as efficient as Hendon Hooker with not putting the ball in harm's way. He did it once against Alabama, and it was the first time in about 8 or 9 weeks, and you're wondering what's wrong with this guy, and then you're saying, oh well, every other quarterback does this about every game. So. His greatness is just he played at such a high level that it was magnified anytime he did something wrong because 95% of the time he did something right.
That's crazy, isn't it? When you get used to something working all the time, and then as soon as it doesn't, forget the other the other 358 times it worked. It's that one time it stands out. So, no, this is another quarterback, Tennessee quarterback, that will be etched in history, brother. I truly believe next 20, 30 years, they're going to remember Hendon Hooker.
All right, last but not least, Shane Vanderbilt. Who's your MVP for the Commodores?
Man, look at Shane picking all this offense, man. Don't he like any defense? Well, he does at Vanderbilt. Anthony Orgy, come on down. 106 tackles. Nothing against. I think Ray's good running back. 1,000 yards quietly. Had a fantastic season there at Vanderbilt. Big piece of it. Quarterback was back and forth between Mike and Swan. They easily could have put one of those guys on if you had a full season with them. But Anthony Orgy was there the whole time. And when I think of MVP, if you remove Orgy from that team, they're not beating Florida. They're not beating Kentucky. He is the captain of that defense, and I think a huge player that didn't get a lot of talk as much buzz. This kid's going to have a hell of a career in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with that selection. He's another one I think Shane needs to be an all-SEC selection. I think Ray Davis needs to be an all-SEC selection. 2 outstanding players. Mm-hmm. But I think you missed the mark on this one too, Shane. I'm going Mike Wright, quarterback. And maybe this is a little biased. Maybe I'm cheating a little because here's my rationale, Shane. Since SEC Media Days, he's got a swagger and a confidence to him. And I think that bled over to the rest of the team. He started so well against Hawaii. I mean, hell, we were saying, my God, we got to put this guy up for the Heisman. I mean, he was that electric, but they needed that. And that was a game where a lot of people were picking Hawaii to win the football game. They blew the doors off Hawaii. Now, that doesn't mean Hawaii's that good or anything like that, but Vanderbilt desperately needed to turn the corner this year, and it started with that Hawaii game. And I think even more impressive, Shane, when things didn't work out for Mike Wright, he's a captain of the team. He lost his job. In today's college football, how many guys would have tanked? How many guys would have hit the portal? How many guys would have quit? And instead of doing that, he continued the lead. Swan goes down, and then Vanderbilt plays even better and gets back-to-back SEC wins. No shot in hell they do that with any other quarterback than Mike Wright, in my opinion. So I get it. He's not the best passer. He's probably not even going to be the starting quarterback as soon as A.J. Swan is back next season. But he just meant so much to this team and so much to this program. Kind of like we were saying with Brian Kelly needing to buy Jaden Daniels a car or something. Clark Lee in a couple of years may have to do the same for Mike Wright, because I think he led this program when it desperately needed leadership and guidance from. You can only do so much as a coach. It's got to come from the players.
Yep.
And it came from Mike Wright. So he's my MVP.
I'm not angry with that pick, Mike. And in fact, I part of me kind of regrets mine, but I think it's leadership. That's one thing about both of these guys that you picked and I picked. Even though he wasn't out there, again, was a captain, man.
Yeah.
That what he was doing behind the scenes probably doesn't get any talk out in the news or any credit out here. But I guarantee you talk to Coach Lee. I mean, you've seen him, how emotional he got talking about Mike and everything he put. That's why he started him with Tennessee. He felt like he owed him, So I think this is a good season for Vanderbilt, and either one of those guys are a prime example of why they're there.
Yeah. Well, hey, buddy, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the show. You got anything else before we hop off the line?
No, man. We're inching along here. We're going to have some SEC news coming up for the SEC championship. Mm-hmm. So look forward to that preview coming up. But other than that, brother, I ain't got anything. Just see which coach got fired. Jump on here. Maybe fire off a couple tweets to the College Football Playoff Committee, letting them know where they got it wrong. See if I can get on my message boards here.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Chase. We're just here trying to keep you up to date with the latest news and notes, and this is just a wild time, Shane, because you just never know what exactly is going to be dropping.
Absolutely.
But it could be anything and everything from retirements to firings to hirings to on and on and on. So we'll keep you up to date with all the biggest news around the SEC. But that is going to do it on this episode of the show. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols. We got screwed in the polls, Mike.